Welcome back to the channel. So we are out back in the garden today, and you may think that we are totally done with gardening, but we have one more thing to get to, and that is planting garlic. So garlic is kind of one of those funny crops that you actually plant in the fall. At least where we live, that's when you plant it, and we will be harvesting it next summer. We are now in the middle of October, and we are at the tail end of when you would want to plant garlic. You can actually start back in mid-September, but it took me a while to get all of these in the mail, and I'm gonna go over with you guys how to plant the garlic. We're gonna get it planted and some of our growing tips. First thing we have to do is get this plastic removed off of the row that we are planting our garlic in. We've had this on here because we have gotten a little bit of snow, which has melted, and we have also been having lots of frost and even some deep frost. So I needed to keep this bed prepared to plant this garlic while the soil is still workable under all of this mulch. Let's first talk about how we prepared our row for garlic. So we started off with lots of manure. We have horse manure in here, and a few weeks back we cleaned out our chicken coop and also put their poop in here as well. So we've got some straw and alfalfa hay, and we also have all the other things that were intermingled in there throughout the season. And you want to start with a pretty heavy base of manure for garlic. We're even going to be adding more nitrogen in the spring, but for now we're just starting with a well composted bed for garlic, and we will also be adding in some all-purpose fertilizer. We are going to jump right in and talk about the varieties of garlic we are growing. We are growing 4 different kinds, and they are all hardneck varieties of garlic. There are 2 different types of garlic, hardneck and softneck, and if you haven't heard of them, I'll just give you a quick rundown of the difference. So hardneck garlics do send up a stalk in the spring, which puts off their flower or the scape, which you can eat, and that is why it gets its name hardneck. So there's that nice hard stalk in between the bulb, kind of like this, but this is not a great example since it's just the bulb itself. Softnecks don't have that stalk. They're also the kind that you're most likely going to find in the grocery store, and they do store a lot longer than the hardneck varieties. We prefer to grow hardnecks because they do better in our climate, so up north in cooler areas. They also have bigger cloves, and you don't get a lot of the tiny cloves on the inside. In fact, you just get the one on the outside. It just has 1 row of cloves, which is nice. And they tend to be a little bit spicier, so we really like that too. All 4 varieties that we are growing today are new to us, so let's go ahead and get started with talking about them. First is Siberian garlic, and this is from Territorial. This is supposed to be really awesome for cold, harsh climates like ours, so I'm very excited about that one. And we also have Blanik from Territorial. I had ordered German red, but they had a crop failure, so we got sent this one instead, which is also an appropriate garlic for our climate. We have 2 different varieties from MIgardener. The first is German extra hardy, and I got a few bulbs of the Chesnok red. One of our subscribers was also nice enough to send us some of her Chesnok red bulbs, so we are going to be planting those as well, and hers look great. They're a little bit bigger than those ones right there. I will go ahead and link her information in our description. She also has a gardening YouTube channel. So without further ado, we are going to get started on planting some garlic. We are going to start with Chesnok red on the corner, and when planting garlic you start off with a bulb like this, and you go ahead and break it up into the individual cloves, but you just want to be careful to make sure that each clove doesn't have the paper removed from it. If you do accidentally break any of the paper off, just go ahead and store those aside. You'll want to eat through those. If you put them in the ground like that, there's a chance they may rot, and these ones are doing pretty good. They all have the paper on them. This is what the inside of one of these garlics look like. So you can see there's this hard stalk that I was talking about earlier, and the bulbs form around it. This one has a good amount of cloves. Some hardneck varieties don't have this many, but you can tell there's just 1 row that grows around that hard stalk, so we don't have any of those tiny little slivers of garlic on the inside that you would find in a softneck. And I'm going to break these up into individual pieces. I'm going to choose to plant this one even though it has a little bit of skin showing. I think that it'll be fine. If the whole thing gets exposed, I would say again just to not plant those. When planting garlic, you want to keep this pointed tip up and the base down where the roots were. That's how it grows. You can tell this clove is pretty big, and what that means is this will be a larger garlic bulb. If I plant a smaller one, we will get a smaller bulb overall, but we plant all of them regardless, and some of them are just a little bit bigger. We're going to be planting these about 4 inches deep. I'm just going to put that in a hole that we have pre-dug. And we are putting these about 5 inches apart from each other. We're going to go ahead and get the rest of these planted. We only have a little bit of time left before we start losing sunlight. We are now onto the German Extra Hardy, and I wanted to show you guys, these are really cool. They come with 3 to 4 really large cloves. We are on the last variety, which is Siberian, and another reason that Eric and I really love these cloves is you can just tell how big they are. And for us, that is wonderful news because we don't like to peel them all that much. And once you peel this papery skin, you get a huge garlic clove as your reward. Just have a few of these cloves left to go, and we have planted a little over 20 feet, and we tried to gauge about how much we think we need for a year, as well as how much we're going to need to save for the next planting season. We'd like to be able to use this garlic for next year rather than having to buy garlic every year thereafter. We just finished planting all of our cloves, and the next step is to put some fertilizer on. This fertilizer is just a combination of a few of the down-to-earth granular fertilizers that I have, and it's primarily an all-purpose blend, but there is some extra phosphorus in there. I added some extra fish bone meal. Garlic likes phosphorus, and then in the spring, once we have some of that leafy growth, we are going to hit it pretty hard with nitrogen. And I personally like blood meal or alfalfa meal for that. A lot of planting guides will tell you to use more fertilizer than I typically use, and you definitely can, just keeping it budget friendly. I've always used a little bit less than what's called for. I finished with the fertilizer, and we are going to get these covered up. The last step will be putting on mulch, which is going to be lots of straw. I think here I read you want anywhere from 4 to 10 inches, and I'm going to go for quite a bit because we are already in that freezing stage, and I don't want this garlic to get frozen. So you're going to see me pile on a lot of straw. We also have the manure in here that is not completely broken down, so that's going to add a little bit of warmth to this row. I'm finishing up with our second layer of mulch, which is Timothy hay. We had straw down underneath this, and what we decided we're going to do is put our plastic back over since we have a few more days of sunshine in the forecast, and I want to make sure that the garlic does not suffer from a deep freeze underneath here. And then I will be pulling that plastic off after that period, and once we get some snow, that will act as a little bit of an insulation for this row. We are really excited to get to grow garlic this year. We skipped a whole year, which means we didn't have any garlic for a year. Well, it was when we moved to Alaska and we had just not had a garden set up. So we're very anxious for next summer when we get to pull these up. We hope you found this video useful and encourage you to try garlic if you've never tried growing it. Let's go ahead and hardneck, and if you and they do store well. I will go ahead and